Good stuff. 4 stars for Ghostbusters Afterlife. And now we move over to our Netflix area. So, our Netflix and Friends area. This is something I saw on BBC iPlayer. And this was one of these things that was made roundabout. So obviously we had the pandemic. In case you haven't noticed, over over the last year and a bit, there's been a pandemic, and the pandemic shut the world down. One of the big things that it shut down was filmmaking, and then when it started coming back little by little with pandemic things, people had to come up with clever ways in which to figure out how you can make something that doesn't need a massive crew or a massive cast or anything like that, but still make a film and still keep everybody safe. So this is one of those things that you can see has come out of that. It stars Sharon Horgan and James McAvoy as pretty much a two-hander. They're pretty much the only people you see in this whole thing, apart from the son. And they are a couple, and essentially it's called Together because the first scene starts off on the day when lockdown is announced. And it's when lockdown is announced, and you see these two people come into the house. They are a couple. They're together. I can't remember if they're married or not, but they're a couple that, no, I think they are married. They're together. They have a kid, but you can see that from the first scene, they can't stand each other. And they walk in and they're bringing in their shopping because they've just done an emergency shop because a lockdown is going to happen. And you see them sort of like talking, and they spend more time talking to you as the audience member, talking directly to the camera than talking to each other. And if they talk to each other, they just snark. They just snark at each other. And then you have all these things, and it's so well, it's almost like a play, but it's written in such a way that you start getting all these nuggets about their lives, how they got together, why they have a kid, how the kid prolonged their relationship. One of them has an elderly mum, and it carries on and goes on essentially through the year and a half of the lockdown and of the pandemic and everything that goes on. And you keep jumping from one bit, and then scene finishes, you go to the next scene, and then scene finishes, and obviously, if you've lived through the lockdown, there's some things that you can kind of see that when you hear one of them has an elderly relative, you're thinking, oh. And there's a bit where the elderly relative goes into a care home, and it's just so well done. And Sharon Horgan is somebody who first time I ever saw her, I think it was in Catastrophe, and I just kind of thought, and I think I thought Sharon Horgan, I was like, okay, cool, she's a comedian. Okay, cool, that's what she can do. But I mean, with Criminal, the TV show Criminal, and this, I'm just going, oh my god, no, the woman is a brilliant actress. she's a brilliant actress who just happens to be damn funny. And it's like, and this, because obviously there's nowhere really to hide, it's just them, and they both have bits where they're just delivering monologues to the camera, and all you really have to work with is their faces and the emotions that they're going through. There's a sequence where she explains exponential and what it means when, they said, oh, the virus has been spreading exponentially, and she explains what the virus means, what it means by the virus spreading exponentially, and what difference it would have made if you'd shut down 2 weeks earlier because of the way it went exponentially. And I'm like, oh my god, that's actually really cool. So you can see it's a drama with a lot on his mind, because it wants to talk about the human cost of the pandemic, what's happened. You can see that it's a drama that is quite frankly angry at the government. I don't think that there's many people who voted Tory who made this who it's like who's angry at the government, but it puts forward its argument as to why this thing was messed up in a way that I think you can go, okay, fine, this is not just frothing at the mouth. This is actual sort of considered argument put forward and all that. And at the same time as it's doing all this, it's taking all these interviews to talk about what has happened worldwide. It also goes into like the human element and what it means for these two people who were on the verge of breaking up and were just kind of can't stand each other, having to be shoved into a house, into close proximity for a year and a half. and what that does to them, and it charts the way it affects their relationships and how they might get closer then further apart and all that. And I just think it was masterful. I really, really think that this was masterfully done. So I think it's still on iPlayer, and if you can find it, it's plainly called Together.
I saw trailers for it certainly when it was first broadcast.
Yeah,
but I didn't see.
Yeah, and I can fully recommend this. I mean, it is so well done, the way they go through it, and they go through all the things that happened to a lot of people during the lockdown. Like there's a bit where James McAvoy has a whole monologue about how he started growing seeds and how he spent a lot of time on eBay trying to find this particular seed because he grows vegetables now, and, and all that sort of stuff. And it's just really well done. There's even a bit where they talk about when you're allowed to have public gatherings, like when they say, oh, you can have a wedding, but you can only have 6 people at the wedding, that kind of thing, and how somebody was feeling really guilty because they really really liked the 6-person wedding, and it was and they're like, I know you're not supposed to say it, but I loved that. It was brilliant. There wasn't hardly anybody. You could actually have the time to talk to people. It was great. and it's I think it's brilliantly observed, and ooh, I was going to give it a 4. I think I might just have talked myself into giving it a 5.
Wow.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those things. I watched it thinking, oh well, this sounds like it would be interesting. James McAvoy, he's good. Sharon Horgan, she's good, and they can hold the screen. And I finished watching the whole thing. I was just kind of like, damn, that was excellent. That was really really good. So yeah, I've talked myself into it. A 5. Go watch it. It will. You will not waste an hour and a half of your life watching together on BBC iPlayer.